There's a strange silence spreading through the world, not the kind born from peace but from absence. The quietness left behind when the voices that used to speak of light, of awakening, of inner truth begin to fade from our everyday conversations. Have you noticed it? The ones who used to speak of consciousness, compassion, and energy seem to be withdrawing, disappearing from the noise of society. It's as if the world is losing its mirrors, those rare souls who reminded us that there's more to life than what can be touched, bought, or measured. But perhaps before assuming they are gone, we should ask, why would the awakened step away? And what does their absence reveal about us? Edgar Cayce once said that the spirit is life, the mind is the builder, the physical is the result. To live awake in this world, then, is not simply to meditate or to seek enlightenment. It is to build consciously the bridge between the unseen and the visible. Yet look around. Society rewards speed, not silence, conformity, not contemplation. The awakened are not vanishing out of rejection of humanity, but rather as a natural response to a collective vibration that has grown too loud, too harsh, too fragmented for deep presence to survive within it. They are not escaping. They are listening. And in that listening, something profound is being revealed about the time we live in. For centuries, every era of transformation began the same way, with the mystics withdrawing from the marketplace to hear what the noise of civilization could no longer tell. When the Buddha left the palace, when Jesus went into the desert, when prophets and seers entered solitude, it was not abandonment, it was preparation. Today's disappearance of spiritually awakened souls may be echoing that same ancient rhythm. They are not lost. They are being called inward, like seeds beneath the soil before spring. And while society sees absence, something sacred is germinating beneath the surface. There's another reason, quieter but equally true. Awakening changes the way we perceive belonging. When your awareness expands beyond the surface of identity, nation, and name, the usual ways of being part of the world no longer fit. The awakened one starts to feel like a visitor among patterns of competition and distraction. And so rather than fighting the current, they choose to float, not out of weakness, but from wisdom. Cayce often spoke of vibration, reminding us that every thought, every feeling is a frequency. When the vibration of collective consciousness becomes discordant, those attuned to subtler harmonies must retreat to retune themselves to the frequency of truth. But here lies the paradox. The very act of stepping away is itself an act of service. The world needs those quiet spaces, the ones who hold light in stillness rather than in speech. Their absence is not an end, but a pulse, like the breath between inhale and exhale. It is the pause that allows renewal to begin. What society perceives as disappearance may in fact be a sacred rebalancing. The soul of humanity taking a breath before speaking again through new voices, new forms, new awakenings. And maybe the deeper revelation is not about them, but about us. Their withdrawal is a mirror reflecting the state of our collective heart. It shows us how far we've drifted from the inner world. It exposes how addicted we've become to distraction and opinion, and how uncomfortable we are with the silence that used to heal us. The awakened are not gone. They have simply stepped into the silence we've been avoiding, and that silence is where truth is waiting to return. So perhaps the question is not, where did they go, but why have we stopped walking beside them? The path of awakening has never disappeared. It only hides when the world forgets to look within. Cayce's words still whisper through time. You will not find God by looking up or down, but by looking within. The disappearance of the awakened is a call, a gentle one but unmistakable, reminding us that the light never leaves. It simply moves to where it can continue to shine freely. What happens when light retreats from the center of a room? At first, everything seems the same. The furniture remains, the walls still stand, but gradually, details begin to fade. Shapes lose their depth. Colors blur into shadow. That's what's happening in the collective soul of humanity right now. The light of conscious presence is not gone, but it has pulled back, and what remains is the illusion of normalcy covering a growing numbness. We continue our routines, our debates, our endless scroll of images and opinions, But beneath it all there's a quiet hunger, a longing for something we can't quite name. This hunger is the echo of the awakened ones, calling to us from the silence where they now dwell. Edgar Cayce once warned that every civilization rises and falls according to its alignment with spiritual truth. When material desires outweigh spiritual balance, the fall is not a punishment, it's a rebalancing. The soul of a culture, like the soul of a person, will always seek harmony. And when we drift too far into noise, the first thing to fade is the voice of wisdom. Those who are most attuned to higher frequencies feel that imbalance first. They begin to sense the distortion, like musicians hearing the orchestra fall out of tune, and their instinct is not to shout but to step back, to listen, to retune their instruments before the next movement begins. This retreat is not weakness, nor elitism, nor rejection. It is medicine. The awakened move into silence because they know that healing never happens in the crowd. They understand that a plant doesn't grow taller by being shouted at, it grows by turning quietly toward the sun. In a world obsessed with performance, withdrawal is a radical act of faith, a faith that the invisible is more powerful than the visible, that what is unseen today will bloom tomorrow. Cayce taught that every thought is creative energy, shaping reality even when it seems to vanish into stillness. When awakened souls step away, they are not abandoning the world, they are holding the blueprint of a healed humanity in realms the eyes cannot see. And yet for those still immersed in daily life, their silence can feel like loss. We look around and wonder, where are the teachers? Where are the voices that once guided us? But maybe the question should be, what are we being asked to hear in their silence? Silence is not the absence of teaching, it is a deeper form of it. When a master stops speaking, the true disciple begins to listen inwardly. The withdrawal of spiritual voices is not a disappearance, it is an invitation. The universe is asking us to grow from dependence to resonance, from seeking light outside to realizing that we carry its spark within. Every age of transformation requires a period of apparent absence. It's the night before the dawn, the winter before the bloom. The awakened souls of this generation have not abandoned humanity. They have gone ahead of it, walking into the interior landscapes where the next form of consciousness is being born. Cayce foresaw a time when a new understanding of spirit and matter would merge, when humankind would rediscover that the material world is not separate from the spiritual, but its expression. Perhaps we are standing on the threshold of that prophecy now. The silence of the awakened may be the sound of the soil being turned before new seeds are planted. The danger, however, lies in misunderstanding this silence as permission to forget. When we stop valuing stillness, when reflection is replaced by reaction, we begin to live only on the surface of life. We scroll past beauty, we rush through pain, we forget how to be. And the more we forget, the harder it becomes to hear the call of the soul. The awakened know this, and that's why they retreat. They step away to preserve the sacred space of remembrance, to hold open the door that the rest of us may one day walk through, when the noise becomes too heavy to bear. So the question that emerges is not one of absence, but of readiness. Are we prepared to meet them again, not as followers but as equals on the path? The silence they've entered is not exclusive. It's the same inner stillness available to all of us. To reach it, we don't need to escape society, we only need to awaken within it. Cayce believed that every individual, regardless of time or place, carries the potential to become a channel for divine consciousness. The retreat of the awakened, then, is not the end of an era. It's the clearing of the stage for a collective awakening yet to come, one that will not depend on a few guiding voices, but will rise from the quiet power sleeping inside every human heart. There is a sacred paradox unfolding beneath the surface of this age. The more disconnected the world becomes, the closer we move to a moment of remembering. Sometimes humanity has to forget itself completely, to rediscover what it truly is. The disappearance of the awakened, then, might not be a decline. It may be the great inhale before the exhale of renewal. Think of the ocean. When the tide recedes, it seems to vanish, leaving the shore dry and empty. But that withdrawal is the necessary movement that gathers strength for the next great wave. The awakened are like that tide. Their silence is not emptiness, it's gathering. They are listening for the divine current that is preparing to return. Edgar Cayce often spoke about cycles, of souls, of civilizations, of consciousness. He described humanity as a classroom, where each soul returns again and again to learn love, patience, and the art of alignment with the Creator's laws. From that lens, what we see today is not random. The quieting of spiritual voices is part of a rhythm older than history itself. When collective consciousness grows dense with distraction, the awakened withdraw into stillness, not as an escape, but as preparation for the next lesson. Their very absence becomes the textbook of this age, teaching us through contrast. By losing the sound of wisdom, we learn to value it again. In the ancient temples of Egypt, the very mysteries Cayce claimed to have lived through, the initiates were taught that silence was the highest stage of initiation. Words were for beginners. Silence was for those who had seen the truth. The reason was simple. Once you experience unity, language feels too small. When your heart perceives directly the vibration of divine order, speech becomes a kind of distortion. That is the secret many of today's awakened souls carry. Their withdrawal from society is not because they have nothing left to say, but because words can no longer hold the depth of what they've come to understand. In silence, they are conversing with eternity. Yet this silence is not meant to exclude us. It's an invitation to rise to that same frequency. The true awakened ones never close the door behind them. They leave it open, glowing faintly for those who are ready to enter. But to find it, we must stop running. The gate of awakening does not appear on the highway of constant doing. It waits in the pause between breaths, in the space before reacting, in the simple courage of sitting with oneself. In that stillness, we begin to feel what they feel, the subtle pulse of the divine running quietly through all things. And when we feel it, the longing for external teachers begins to fade. We understand that guidance has been whispering inside us all along. The tragedy and beauty of this era is that both darkness and light have become louder. Information floods our senses, opinions replace intuition, virtual connection masks spiritual solitude. But every time the pendulum swings too far in one direction, nature and the soul demand balance. Cayce foresaw a time when the sons of men would again walk with God, not as prophets set apart, but as ordinary beings living extraordinary inner lives. The fading of the visible awakened may be the labor pains of that prophecy. The world is being forced to mature, to grow beyond dependency on external light, and to ignite its own flame. You might wonder then, what becomes of those who truly awaken in such a noisy age? How do they live? Where do they go? Most of them do not vanish to mountaintops anymore. They walk quietly among us, disguised as teachers, artists, healers, or simple souls who smile without reason. They are no longer interested in being followed. They are interested in awakening recognition. Their mission is no longer to lead humanity, but to remind it of its own capacity to lead itself. That's why they seem invisible, because their light no longer shines at us. It shines through us. They are catalysts, not celebrities. And perhaps that's the greatest evolution of all. So when we lament their disappearance, what we are really missing is our own reflection in them. Their silence is not an abandonment, but a mirror held before us, asking, "Can you now become what you once sought?" The age of the guru may be ending, but the age of the collective soul is beginning. And if we listen, truly listen, we'll realize that the awakened have not gone anywhere. They've simply moved into the one place no noise can reach. The quiet center of every heart that dares to remember it is divine. Maybe this is what awakening was always meant to look like. Not a mass gathering around a single light, but millions of small flames, each rediscovering its own power to glow in the dark. The silence of the awakened was never meant to be permanent. It is the sacred pause before the next expression of spirit. Every age has its language for truth, and ours is changing. The mystics of old spoke through temples and scrolls, the prophets through vision and scripture. Now the divine speaks through vibration, through art, compassion, technology used consciously, and human hearts learning to feel again. The form shifts, but the essence never does. Cayce's voice still echoes, "The spirit is the life." And spirit never disappears. It simply evolves its disguise. So what does this mean for us? The ones still learning to listen, It means the responsibility once carried by a few must now awaken in the many. We are no longer waiting for teachers to arrive. We are being invited to become them. The great withdrawal of the awakened is a rite of passage for humanity itself, marking the transition from dependency to embodiment. It's as if the universe has said, "You've heard enough wisdom, now live it." This is the real revelation hidden in their disappearance, the call to take what we once admired in others and cultivate it within, to stop asking for light and start being it, quietly, wherever we stand. This does not mean abandoning the world to its chaos. It means re-entering it with new eyes. The awakened who have stepped away are not rejecting the world. They are making space for a new kind of participation, one that arises from stillness rather than struggle. The next wave of spiritual evolution will not be led by preachers, but by presence. It will not require temples of stone, but hearts made transparent by humility and kindness. The revolution will be internal, invisible, silent, and unstoppable. And it begins not in distant monasteries, but in living rooms, in quiet moments of forgiveness, in the gentle choice to listen before reacting. Cayce once described the soul as a record of all that has been thought, felt, and done. Each of us, then, carries within us the living archive of humanity's evolution. If we wish to call back the presence of the awakened, we must purify the vibration of our own record. We must become worthy listeners again, attentive to intuition, sensitive to truth, unafraid of silence. Because it is in that inner quiet that the frequencies of higher consciousness can find resonance. The awakened are not gone. They are waiting for resonance. When enough hearts begin to vibrate at that frequency again, they will reappear, not as distant sages, but as our neighbors, our friends, our reflections. And perhaps that is what the disappearance was for, to teach us that the sacred was never in the speaker, but in the listening. We have worshipped the flame and forgotten the air that allows it to burn. Now, the invitation is to become both, to speak and to hear from the same space of presence. The mystics once withdrew into caves. Today we are being asked to build those caves inside our attention, to create inner sanctuaries in a world that never stops talking. Every time we pause before reacting, every time we choose compassion over judgment, every time we remember to breathe before speaking, we reopen the channel through which spirit can move freely through the world again. The age of separation is ending. What comes next will not be a return to old spiritual hierarchies, but the birth of shared awareness. Humanity will no longer look for light out there, but recognize itself as part of it. The awakened ones who seem to have vanished are the midwives of that birth, holding the energy steady while the rest of us awaken to our part in it. They are not gone. They are holding the field. Their silence is the sacred container in which the next consciousness is forming, and when it blooms, it will not belong to anyone. It will belong to everyone. That is the revelation Edgar Cayce foresaw, that the divine plan was never about the rise of a few, but the remembering of the many. So if you have felt the absence of the awakened in your world, take heart. Their silence is not the end of light. It is the moment before sunrise. You are part of that dawn. The question is no longer, where did they go, but what light am I meant to carry now? Close your eyes for a moment. Feel the pulse of life beneath your ribs. That steady rhythm is the voice of the same source they heard. You are not separate from them. You are the continuation of their prayer. And when you choose presence in a world of noise, you bring them back, not as memories, but as living breath flowing through you. Now the silence speaks through us all.